everything. Hence, it's called The Collective. Music, arts, politics, sports, and the issues of the day all have a home here. So this morning, what we're going to do is jump into something local. Randy Rubin Rodriguez and her husband, Sergio Rodriguez, are the founders of Our Kids. You may have seen them a few weeks back. We discussed their new addition on Dixwell Avenue in New Haven, Connecticut. And Our Kids is really a space that provides specialized quality services to children and families in transition. And their objective is to promote permanency, safety, and stability for children by providing mentoring services to, or nurturing services, I should say, to biological, foster, adoptive, and relative care families. So with that, we welcome co-founder Randy Rubin Rodriguez. She's going to talk to us about a fundraiser that they're having on March 4th virtually. So yes, you globally can pitch in and help out Our Kids. It's called The Good Adoptee. And that fundraiser is going to be March 4th at, is it 7 p.m.? 7 p.m.
And it is.
The sponsors, or you're getting help from not only the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, but the Schubert Theater. So welcome back, Randy.
Thank you very much. We also have to give kudos to our key sponsor, the Adoption Community Network of Connecticut. They're our key sponsor, and certainly the support from the Community Foundation. And the Schubert goes without saying.
Yeah.
They have really partnered with us on this venture, which we've never done before. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
So first time for everything. How did it come about that this was what you chose?
As a fundraiser?
Yes.
So I have been involved in the adoption community for over 25 years. As many people know, Sergio and I are adoptive parents and have experienced the world of adoption and the journey that our children have gone through and continue to go through. And when a bill came up in Connecticut for adoptees to secure their original birth certificates, which they're currently denied, it really pulled at my heartstrings, because how can people not know who their first family is?
Yeah.
And, we have friends with transracial adoptions, right? Their children are Caucasian and they're African American, or they're Caucasian and their children are African American. How are we those children's biological parents? That's ridiculous.
Right.
And how do you walk into a room looking around, wondering, is that my dad? Are those my grandparents?
Right.
I mean, coming from an intact family with strong extended family members, it's a very hard concept for me to grasp. As many times as I've heard stories and heard individuals' journeys, it's very hard to really hold on to that.
So this was a no-brainer, in other words.
It was, and I did have the opportunity to see this play in New York several years ago and was so moved by it that I thought, if there was a way that we could bring this play and this journey, the adult adoptee's journey, the good adoptee, right, to a big stage for many people to begin to understand that adoption is not a singular event. It's not you go to court, the judge signs the papers, woo, I have a family.
Yeah.
No. And Suzanne Bachner, who is the playwright, it is her story. It is her story. So it's biographical. And Bob Bader is the dramaturge for the play. And it's a wonderful, really riveting story.
Yeah, it's about how she tried to get her paperwork, and the state of New York still has not opened its records to adoptees. So, I can only imagine how would somebody feel in that space, right? Because like you said, it's about trying to find out who you are, and it doesn't negate anything from the people that took care of you or people that, fostered you or adopted you. It's about what you need to know about yourself.
Right. And fortunately now New York did pass a law so adult adoptees can access their birth certificates. But in Connecticut, we still can't. And that law is in the legislature this session. And
Okay.
it's really, really important to get everybody's support. We are fortunate that in New Haven, all of our legislators, I think, most of our legislators do support the bill as it is written this year. But this is the 5th year now we've been trying to get this passed.
So what are the proceeds going toward for this fundraiser?
So this fundraiser, this virtual live stream play on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. is going to go toward part of our expansion. As some people know, we were a single story building and tried to do everything within the same space, basically, just different times. Now what we've done with our expansion is create a wing, if you will, in the new building, the new expansion, that is exclusively for our adoption services, which can range from people who are curious about adoption and wanting to have home studies done in a private way and pursue possibly private adoptions, whether it's domestic or international. It's for young people who have been adopted and are living with their adoptive families and are beginning as teenagers to really struggle with that sense of dual loyalty and how do I manage this and who am I? And as well as older adoptees, right, who are ideally in the college world, because that's when many young people do begin a search, right? They're completely independent. For those that do not have open adoptions, right? They go away to college and now it's like, oh, I can do this. My parents don't have to know, right? But are they really equipped to do the search? And are they really emotionally supported to find out whatever they're going to find out? It's not always a pretty story.
Yeah, I'm sure it's always not that pleasant. And I think, unfortunately, we buy into that whole beautiful media story where you discover people and they love you back and there's no disruption in their lives when you come into their lives and vice versa, all those things. And so when it doesn't turn out quite that way, it's probably a lot for people to handle.
It is. And, one of the really powerful things that's occurring now, and I can speak of this with my own experience, is the whole Ancestry.com, 23andMe.
Yes.
Right? Somebody getting a phone call or somebody getting an email. Are you related to, I'll use my case, Eli Rubin? We might be first cousins. Well, we're not first cousins. We're sisters.
Wow.
We're not first cousins.
Wow.
Okay. Now, my parents are both deceased, so I can't have that conversation. Her mother is deceased, as is our father. Is that how we want this process to go?
Right.
Let's open those records. Let's be proactive,
And
right? To
give
avoid some of
somebody,
those disruptions.
right. I was going to say, and give somebody a platform in which they can stand on and approach people in a different light, a different sense. So, how's this going to go? What are we, if I buy my ticket, what happens?
So you're going to go to, I think it's Schubert.com, right? I can send you the flyer if you don't have it.
Please
to
do.
put up. Okay. You can go online to the Schubert, or you can call their box office at 203-562-5666 and pay for your tickets right online. And if you're interested in grabbing something to eat, you can also go to Brazzi's.com and get a 15% discount on your pickup meal from Brazzi's if you mention our kids. So
you don't have
Val
to.
and Brazzi's have been a longtime supporter of our kids from the very first event we ever did.
That's wonderful.
And then you will get an email back with a link so that at about 10 to 7, you can begin coming into the room. And the play, we'll introduce the play, and you'll be welcome to join and participate. And then we're going to have a live talk back.
Yes, that's what I'm interested in. So after I have my dinner and production theater,
right,
I actually get to talk to after go to the theater. Who am I going to be talking with in the talk back?
So everyone will have the opportunity to meet the playwright, Suzanne, and Bob, the dramaturge of the play production, as well as 3 adult adoptees.
Wow.
Two of whom are local. Gary Osprey is with a radio station, and forgive me, but I forget the station that he's with. Wait, maybe I have it written down.
Is he
WINY?
Okay,
and
yeah.
I believe it's out of like the Waterbury area, maybe out over there. Gary's an adult adoptee with a fascinating transracial story. Jessica Teta, who's with the United Way of Greater New Haven. A lot of people know Jessica. She's an international adoptee. And our very own Randy Renee McCrae, who is a social justice and equity consultant, and just, moving into her new office, I believe, this weekend. So we're very excited about hearing from them and how their journeys also relate to the play, and have people ask questions, right? We're really interested in hearing from the audience. We will be asking ahead of time. If you have a question, send it in ahead of time. And then we'll also be doing a live chat. So if there's lots of energy, we will be setting up a second Zoom for those people who are interested in continuing the conversation the following week.
All right. So Randy, we've got 15 seconds. So tell us again how we get tickets.
The Good Adoptees at the Schubert. Call the box office, 203-562-5666. And thank you so much to our corporate sponsor, Adoption Community Network of the state of Connecticut, as well as the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, and the wonderful team at the Schubert. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Randy Rubin Rodriguez, co-founder of Our Kids. I will see you there Thursday, the 4th, 7 p.m.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Everybody
Thanks.
stay safe.
You
See you
too,
Thursday.
Randy. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Please do support, as that's a wonderful, wonderful organization that has been around a long time in the New Haven community and does great work. We're going to totally move in a different direction. As you may have heard, during the past week, a letter was released by a former New York police officer, allegedly on his deathbed. And it said he, the officer, was a participant in a group of elite officers who, I want to put it a different way. I don't want to say conspired, but I guess that's the word to use, to pull the security detail from Malcolm X. They are saying that because of this officer's ploy to remove these two officers who had infiltrated the Nation of Islam and had become part of Malcolm X's detail, they pulled the detail. This officer was in charge of those folks who pulled the detail, which left Malcolm X without security, therefore making it easier for the assassination to take place for the Audubon Ballroom speech. And if I'm stumbling, that's because we're doing some technical things behind the scenes and I'm trying to keep up. But you may know Abdur Rahman Muhammad from the Netflix documentary, Who Killed Malcolm X. He's been a guest on this show from the very beginning, and we're so happy to have him come back today and talk about what this revelation may mean, not only to the case, but for the people who have been wrongly accused of being a part of the assassination of Malcolm X. So, Abdur Rahman Muhammad, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. And we're also going to talk about your award at the end. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Got to give you your props.
All right.
So, this officer, Officer Ray Woods?
Ray Wood.
Ray Wood. Ray Wood was the person who was in charge of these officers who had infiltrated Malcolm X's security detail, correct?
No, what he did was he orchestrated a plot to blow up the
Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty, yes. Right. These two men that he, in a sense, set up in a crime were part of Malcolm's security detail. At least that's the claim, you know.
Right.
And, hey, you know what? I'm not. Give me a second, okay? Let's start over.
All right.
I told you mornings is.
All right. So the bottom line is.
Hold up. This is not. Don't put this on there, okay?
Too late. We're live.
Are we live?
We're live.
Oh boy.
We're live.
All right.
So.
Okay.
Give yourself a moment.
Sorry, guys.
It's all right. Give yourself a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now here's the story. Here's the story. Okay. Here's the claim of the letter. Okay.
Yes.
That Ray Wood was an undercover police officer for BOSS. Okay. The Bureau of Special Services. Okay. And Investigations, which was an ultra secretive wing of the New York City Police Department. Okay. He acted in the same type of way as let's say Gene Roberts, who you saw in the series. Okay, he was Malcolm's security detail, and he provided mouth-to-mouth resuscitation for Malcolm once he was shot. Like Eugene Roberts, Ray Wood too was a bossy agent, an undercover police officer for the New York City Police Department, and the claim is that he helped to, in a sense, peel off two of Malcolm's most dedicated security detail to involve them in a plot to blow up the Statue of Liberty. Okay. And so by taking them off of the scene, taking them out of the Audubon Ballroom, about 4 or 5 days before it happened, that he left Malcolm exposed to the hit team, the assassins that came out of the Newark Mosque, number 25, the 5 men who carried that out, that Ray Wood ostensibly facilitated their executing that plan.
Now, based on your research, does this put a puzzle piece almost in place? Because all of this is alleged. So does it fit? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it fits. Sure, it fits. Because should these claims turn out to be sound, and that's being vetted, by the district attorney of New York, Manhattan, Cyrus Vance Jr.,
right,
it would confirm what we have already proven in Who Killed Malcolm X. In Who Killed Malcolm X, we put on camera Anthony Boozer, who was the director of BOSS, okay? The Bureau of Special Services. We put him on camera, all right? And then we showed you, police officers staked out on the top of surveillance trucks and monitoring, the activity of activists and those involved in the Black freedom struggle. We showed you that. So that's established,
But now, when you do show it, it also shows that, unlike other times when Malcolm X was speaking, especially in Harlem, the police were close. They were feet away. You could see them standing around. But with this particular incident, it seems that there are no police. They're either, like you said, located on a roof. But as far as, there were no police cars, there were no officers outside of the Audubon Ballroom that were visible anyway. So it seems that something went on, because people who followed Malcolm X, even just general people who followed him in New York City to hear him speak, said, and I believe one of the people that you interviewed even said, it was strange because there were no police anywhere. Well, and you got the feeling going in that something was different about this day.
Well, that's correct. Usually Malcolm's speaking events were swarming with police officers. And this particular afternoon, even the casual observer noticed that there was no police officers. There were 2 actually in the building, but they were way in the back in the other ballroom. They weren't even in the hall. So, the question becomes, was this orchestrated? And, we leave the question out there in Who Killed Malcolm X. We posed the question, why is this so? But perhaps Ray Woods is going to answer that question for us. It's absolutely consistent with what we have proven already in Who Killed Malcolm X, that the New York City Police Department certainly didn't protect Malcolm and had antipathy for him. Now how far did it go? Did it go as far as them orchestrating the assassination in conjunction with the FBI? That they conspired to peel away his security detail. I will say this, it is known that the rostrum guards, the two men who were on the rostrum that day, were not the normal men that Malcolm had usually. Okay. Usually he had a man named George. His last name was George. But that day, there was Robert 35X Smith and Charles X. Kenyatta. Both of those men were from Newark.
So they were out of the Newark Mosque.
They were
not affiliated, but definitely out of Newark.
Yes, they were part of Malcolm's organization. But they were out of Newark. So they knew the assassins. They were looking right at them, sitting in the audience. Now the question is, and this is where Ray Wood's letter fits in, which is that, when you have a sports team, for example, right? When you lose pieces, then you have to start moving pieces around, right? So if Ray Wood peeled away these two men that ultimately, went to jail involved in this plot, then that would mean that Malcolm's security would have to move people around. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And perhaps have these two men from Newark who were looking directly at the assassins and said nothing. Was that orchestrated? This is just one of the questions that that I'm having in my mind.
All right, Abdul Rahman, we're gonna come back. I need to take a break real quick, but stick around because I got more questions and we got more discussion. Okay.
Okay.
This is The Collective on WSME Enlightenment Radio. Be right back. This is The Collective on WSME Enlightenment Radio. My name is Michelle Turner, and in the virtual studio with us today is Abdur Rahman Muhammad, the focus of the documentary Who Killed Malcolm X. His research has given police officers or the New York City Police Department a new look into the murder of Malcolm X. And he's here today, and he's been a consistent guest, and I'm very appreciative of that. He's here today to discuss the so-called deathbed confession of Raymond Wood. He's the New York City officer who came up with a plot, allegedly, to pull people out of Malcolm X's security detail on February 21st, 1965, which was the day that Malcolm X was assassinated. So Abdur
Rahman,
in pulling out those security people and substituting them with people's security detail out of Newark, New Jersey, even though these people were part of Malcolm's detail, would you say that their allegiance was more to the nation and not necessarily Malcolm?
Well, that's a possibility. That's
and all things are possible,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All the problem is this is so long ago, and all of these men have long since passed away. Now, the claim is that these two men were on the door detail, not on the rostrum. But my point was that if the door detail is gone and you have to pull someone away from the rostrum, the normal rostrum security to cover the door, then it puts in place these two men from Newark, Robert 35X Smith and Charles X. Blackwell, you put them, on the rostrum, were they part of a broader conspiracy to orchestrate this? Because this was noticed that these were not the normal rostrum security detail. So this is what we want to explore. I think these allegations are absolutely explosive. The two men who were arrested, one of them's name was Bo, the other one was Khalil, Muslim name, and these there was a dramatic reading of the letter last week that really upset the apple cart, so to speak. But we were gratified in that it confirmed the position that we've always taken, that there were three entities, three bodies who worked in not in concert, but there was a confluence of interests that came together on February 21st, 1965. And that number one was J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. Number two was the New York City Police Department. And number three was the Nation of Islam, who were the actual triggermen.
So you had a perfect storm.
A perfect storm. And if you add the Ray Wood element to it, all it does is make it that much more of an intrigue.
And he says the reason why he kept quiet all these years was because he was threatened. He says not only his life, but his family's. So he kept it quiet. And he shared it with this particular family member. And that's how they got the letter. Now, he died in November. And his daughter said yesterday that the letter is not true, that that's not her father's signature. And her cousin, who released the letter and read the letter, is doing this for his own fame. But yet and still, from what you've just said, it sounds like Mr. Wood decided that he needed to let this go out of his conscience. And like you said, a lot of these people who were involved have now transitioned, have now passed on. So there's always going to be an element of, is that the way it really happened? But it seems that from your research that there's more than a 90% chance that the puzzle is finally falling into place.
Well, I'm not going to put a percentage on it. And, I'm not going to co-sign the letter. Okay. I mean, because that will have to be vetted by the
different
DA,
way.
Right. And that's why I make the point that, who killed Malcolm X already established that the New York City Police Department failed to protect Malcolm X, right, for whatever reason. So, we don't need this letter to make our case. That's the point. The letter has already kind of entered into the urban legend, the urban mythology now. It's taken on a life of its own. We have the Nation of Islam claiming exoneration,
by this letter.
By this letter, they're seizing upon this letter to say, that their hands are totally clean. Their hands are not totally clean. They're not clean at all.
Why do you say that?
Well, because if we establish that the shotgun assassin was a man by the name of William X. Bradley, also known as Al-Mustafa Shabazz, and that after an entire year, a man who has a wife, a man who has children, a man who's part of a community, and over a year, no one has denied, the facts that we put forth in the documentary. It's well established and well known that that William X. Bradley and the other conspirators, Benjamin Thomas, Talmadge Hayer, Leon Davis, and Benjamin Thomas, I think I mentioned him, right? That yes. They were all, that they were all members of the Nation of Islam. Okay, they were all members, and William Bradley was a lieutenant who, went on to to be part of that community many years after the assassination of Malcolm X. So they're in it. There's no way that they can claim exoneration from this letter. When you already establish, okay, that they were the trigger men, if it so happens later that we learned that there was another boss agent involved, like, let's say, a Eugene Roberts, how does that exonerate the Nation of Islam? How do they get to claim that their hands are clean? It doesn't. It really has no bearing on their role. They were the trigger men. So, there's no way that they can claim exoneration.
So you're saying it's apples and oranges?
It's total apples and oranges. It has no relationship to one another. If all it would prove is that the machinations of the New York City Police Department was more expansive than what we presented in the series. That's all it would prove. It doesn't negate the fact.
Change anything.
It doesn't change a thing. It doesn't change one thing.
So what does this mean for those who have been wrongly accused of being involved in the assassination? I know that there have been some work behind the scenes that's not getting a lot of exposure, and it's probably with good reason, I don't know, in regard to getting those gentlemen's names cleared.
Well, that's the goal, Mr. Wood, Reggie Wood, said that he wanted to get all three of those men exonerated. One of the men was in our series, Thomas 15X Johnson, who went on to be known as Khalil Islam, and the two other gentlemen he mentioned, Bo and I believe his name is Khalil, or I forget. It's a Muslim name, but I forget.
Yes.
Yeah. He wants to get them clear. He says that his cousin, in order to protect his cousin's cover, okay, as an operative for boss, that they arrested Thomas Johnson, that they in a sense put a case on Thomas Johnson, that they wrongly or falsely arrested and convicted Thomas Johnson to cover or protect his identity as an as a New York City police officer. So he says that he wants to exonerate all three of these men, and of course, we want to see anyone who's wrongfully convicted exonerated. But in our series, specifically, we filed paperwork with the Convictions Integrity Unit to get the name of Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson exonerated. Today, Norman Butler is known as Muhammad Abdul Aziz, and that's what he's known as, in the series. That is his name. And unfortunately, Thomas Johnson passed away in 2009. And it was a really grim struggle to see that elderly gentleman, trying to clear his name, and he was quite ill, and he was having some financial troubles at the end of his life, and it was really kind of pitiful, to see him on his way to his eventual end, not able to clear his name. It's an awful thing to die with that kind of stigma on you, that type of slander.
Yeah. So do we wait? Do we wait for Cy Vance to say yay or nay on this? Is that where it seems to be heading?
That's exactly where it is. Now, what I would say is that things would have moved much quicker were it not for the COVID virus. So when COVID hit, the municipal archives and, the government bureaucracies where we need to get documents and materials to substantiate these claims. Now, let me make it clear as well. I'm not part of the legal team. Okay. But of course, my work undergirds what they're doing, but he has lawyers, David Cheney's, and he also is working with the Innocence Project with Barry Scheck. That's what they do. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not
Right.
a party to that.
Right. But the reason why I asked you to come today, and the reason why I brought that up, is because I wanted to get your feedback on all of it, especially because these were things that, while most people talked about them, the documentary and your research brought all of that to light to not only African Americans, but the globe. Anybody who has any interest in Malcolm X, I'm sure, either has seen who killed Malcolm X or has told somebody else and they've watched it. I mean, for 6 months, that's all everybody could talk about during the pandemic. So I bring you in to get your perspective, not necessarily to make you a party of or a party to, as much as it is, you're the expert. And so I want to hear from the expert. If I can reach the source, I'm going to the source, and you are that. So
thank you. I appreciate the compliment. What I would say is about that is the reason the series has received so much acclaim, and it's the facts of history that it established. The reason it's been so well received is because we stuck to the most solid evidence that we had. There were so many other personalities that could have been brought into the story. For example, all the time, where's Minister Farrakhan? How comes Minister Farrakhan's not in it? We get all that. There's so many other names that circulate around the story that could have been brought into the story. However, we wanted to deliver the goods. All right. We wanted to make it, irrefutable, incontrovertible. And so anything that, would, for example, have any element of conjecture or something that could not be nailed down tight, we did not include. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the reason.
Because I'm sure this is expansive. I'm sure there's, even though you did, yeoman's work in exposing a lot of different things, I'm sure there's a lot more that we, the general public, still don't know about all of this. And you probably have seen, but like you said, you're trying to give something irrefutable. And so that in itself has to be narrowed down. It has to even be whittled down so that it makes sense and that it doesn't take different avenues.
It's called rigor in the historical profession.
Yes.
It's called rigor.
Yes.
We have to be rigorous and we have to be airtight. It has to be airtight. It's airtight. You know now who pulled that shotgun. It's airtight. Okay. And only those who are, just denying reality, really, you know what I mean? Just denying all rationality, are saying that the Nation of Islam had nothing to do with it. Okay. They're producing videos and they're on a full-blown propaganda campaign to say that they had nothing to do with it, which is, to me, insanity.
You have just been recognized by your alma mater, Howard University, with the Chadwick Boseman Award. Let me get it right. Our favorite actor of this century.
That's right.
And also an HU grad.
That's
I'm gonna,
correct.
I'm gonna be nice and shout out HU. You know,
You
I'll be
better.
nice. I'll be nice. But remember, you're talking to an A&T Aggie, so you know you're gonna get a little pushback. Um, Congratulations, and
Thank you.
tell us what that is. What does that mean, and what does
Well,
it mean to you?
oh, it's incredible to me. I received it from the Capstone Group, which is an august body of alumni and faculty of Howard University, for my work in Who Killed Malcolm X, and it is the first annual. So I received the first one ever. Last August, we lost the great thespian Chadwick Boseman, who was a Howard University alum and a great, phenomenal human being and humanitarian. And so in order to honor his legacy, the Capstone Group created this award, and they decided to give it to me. And I'm very humbled and honored to represent that legacy. And it's near and dear to my heart, and I will cherish it to my last breath, because it's the first award I've ever received for my work as a historian. So that means so much to me.
Pretty good for a guy with a BA.
Yeah, man. I don't have all those big letters behind my name. I'm just a brother, man. I'm just a brother out here trying to get it done.
So, how's the course going? Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, the course is fantastic. It's now 2 parts. It's not being offered right now, but I believe I'm going to be offering a spring version of it.
Okay.
I've already had 2 of Malcolm's nieces take the course. I've had a niece of Thelonious Monk who has taken the course. I've had a daughter of Amiri Baraka who's taken the course. I've had people from all over the world take the course. I've had folks from Bahrain. I've had folks from France. It is, I think, the most unique offering, a complete study of the life of Malcolm X through his iconic book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. And we go through meticulous detail, page by page by page of this book, unveiling who the characters are, where it kind of shades the truth a little bit, where it kind of exaggerates, where it kind of mitigates other things, where it's silent on other things, because an autobiography is just a person telling their life story,
Right.
And when you tell your own life story, you're going to be the hero, obviously. You're not going to tell everything.
Right. And Alex Haley finished the book after the assassination. So there was more empathy on everybody's part about Malcolm X's story. So I think for me in reading it, what I got out of it was that here was somebody who came from very humble beginnings and corrected his life, took on not only the highest spiritual calling that you could probably task as a human being, but really was somebody who was not going to back down in what his community needed. And his community trusted him enough to sanction him as a leader. Although we know Malcolm X was not as revered by the African American community, just like Dr. King was not revered in the African American community as much as they are in this moment. So for me, the autobiography, it does mean a lot. It does mean a lot.
Well, these men have gone on to become, iconic, and they're larger than life. But, we do a disservice to them when we treat them that way, because what makes them great really is the fact that they were flesh and blood. Like
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And they had the same kind of struggles that we encountered. And it is true, at the end of both of their lives, the people had kind of turned on them, especially in the case of, Dr. King. A lot of folks don't really understand that at the end of his life, even the civil rights leaders were turning on him because of his
he was more controversial
on
than
the
he had ever
Vietnam
been.
War. He took on the Vietnam War, and he was stepping out of his lane. And what was
so
his
they
lane?
said, yes.
So they said, right? You're a civil rights leader. Why are you talking about the war? He was seen as being turning on the Johnson administration, and that upset the funding sources of all these civil rights organizations. And so the ministers and these civil rights leaders turned on him. The Johnson administration.
Rahman, we're gonna have to leave it there.
Okay.
I'm getting a wrap-up signal.
Alrighty.
But nevertheless, you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you so much. I sure appreciate it.
You're always welcome to come back here. Consider the collective a place where you can jump in at any time. Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I'm anxious to see what's going to happen with this letter. So I'm sure you'll be back.
It's be my pleasure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Abdul Rahman Muhammad, the person, the power behind the documentary Who Killed Malcolm X. This has been The Collective on WSME Enlightenment Radio.